I'm David Rosen, as Eric said, what one NJOL board member described as an honorary member of New Jersey, and I'm proud to be that. Um, just a little bit about me, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about yourselves. My background is primarily in adult literacy education, in professional development for most of my working life. As the director of the Adult Literacy Resource Institute at the University of Massachusetts at Boston. But also I've done work in curriculum development in a range of contexts, GED for older youth, for example, project-based curriculum development, work-related learning for older youth, and also reading and writing for early childhood educators, and some others. I've done a number of program evaluations over the years, and currently am the project evaluator for the System for Adult Basic Education Support Math Professional Development Center in Massachusetts at TURC in Cambridge. But perhaps more relevant to this webinar is over these years I've had a persistent interest in technology. I've written about technology on a blog that I have, and a number of articles in journals, and book reviews. I've done presentations and obviously webinars like this, but presentations at conferences and workshops. I'm also the co-creator of a free website called the Media Library of Teaching Skills, designed for adult ed teachers. You can think of it as a video window on other teachers' classrooms where you can actually see what other teachers are doing in their classrooms. I'm also the moderator of the Flipped Learning NING Adult Education Group. This is adult educators who are flipping their classrooms. We'll talk a little bit more about flipped learning later. I'm the moderator of the WIGIO M Learning Group. That's M as in mobile learning. And some of you may have discovered that I'm a frequent poster to the Links Technology community of practice, and also the other Links communities of practice. So that's me in a nutshell. And now let's see a little bit about you. I think, Eric, you're going to give us a way to respond to these questions, right?
Yes, so here's a poll about your background, and select as many of these as makes sense for you. About 38% of people have voted, 50% have voted. And I will say in advance that this webinar will be archived after the fact at the NJOL YouTube channel, where we archive all of our webinars. You will also get a PDF of David's PowerPoint. So certainly take down ideas as we're going through, but don't feel compelled to write every single thing down. You'll actually get a copy of the PowerPoint once it's done. So we have 100% of the vote in, and
excellent.
88% are teachers, and 13% are part-time teachers of science, and 25% are program administrators. So no full-time teachers of science and no professional developers. So professional, program administrators, teachers, and 13% are part-time teachers of science.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I'm not surprised that there are no full-time teachers of science. In adult ed, I've yet actually to meet one. And so the norm really is adult ed teachers who, as part of what they do, teach science. And occasionally there's someone who teaches only science but does it part-time. So let's take a look at what we're going to try to accomplish today. I think we'll get to many of these objectives, perhaps not all of them, but by the end of this webinar, you will know where to find free online science instruction videos that are suitable for adult learners, not necessarily originally designed for adult learners. And you will experience using some good criteria for evaluating science videos and know where to find other criteria and other instruments for evaluating them. We will talk about flipped learning, flipped learning models and characteristics and how it differs from traditional classroom models. And we'll briefly talk about how to implement a flipped learning model in adult education, particularly in a science class, in a practical, manageable way. Perhaps some of you have signed up for the webinar because you're more interested in flipped learning than science, so we'll have a chance to talk a little bit about that.
David, a little bit of the PowerPoint is cut off.
Oh, really? At the top or bottom?
At the bottom and a little bit to the right.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to try a little adjustment here and see if that helps. How's that? Is that better?
Nope.
No? Okay.
You're just going to have to scroll over and scroll down a little bit sometimes.
Okay. So the last two objectives are that you're going to experience actually looking at and evaluating a science video. We'll just have time for one. And that you'll be able to list some tips for using instructional videos that, of course, apply to science videos as well. I want to tell you about what led up to this. About a little over a year ago, working with science teachers on the LINCS, the Literacy, Information, and Communication System community of practice that's devoted to science, we set up a small group, a mini community practice of science teachers who were interested in evaluating science videos. And we used LINCS, and we also used Google Drive because, as many of you know, Google Docs are collaborative writing documents. And through those two tools, we were able, over a period of about 10 months, to create a list of science videos that were appropriate for adults, and also to review 10 of those videos. And the reviews were done by at least 2 science teachers, and in some cases more. So let me tell you a little bit about the science videos list. And those of you who have already received the handouts have it, perhaps have already looked through it, I hope. If not, you can certainly do that after the webinar. But very quickly, it's organized into sites, video collection sites. There are 22 of those, and each of those sites has a number of videos, in some cases perhaps 8 or 10, in other cases hundreds. And then it's also organized by topics. So here are the topics: animals, astronomy, botany, chemistry, earth science, human body, health and disease, microscopic view of the world. By the way, that's a very popular one. Nature, nutrition, physics, science history, and zoology. And at the bottom of the slide, which you may not be able to see, is the link for that document. So
can you scroll down, David? Can you scroll down a little bit? That one?
Actually, no, I can't. I can page down, but not actually scroll down.
Okay.
I don't think. Yep. So then the other document is a 20-page document with these 10 peer-reviewed videos. So the average length of each video is 2 pages, which is pretty extensive. And by the way, this particular set of reviews uses the Achieve rubrics, which some of you may know is part of the Open Education Resources movement. And so these video reviews will be on OER Commons, which we'll talk about very briefly later.
David, can I interrupt for just 1 second? So that, you know, I've gotten some back channel communication about not being able to see the full screen, and we're sorry about that. When you get the PDF of the PowerPoint, it'll be straight from David's file, so it'll be complete. So for any of these that are cut off slightly on the edge or the bottom, when you get the actual PDF, you'll get the full slides.
So I hope all of you have received as one of your handouts the evaluation items, and so this would be a good time if you have any questions about those. It's a good idea to review those before we watch a video, so you have an idea of what we're going to be discussing after you watch the video. So let's see, are there any questions that you have about the evaluation items?
Right, these were the handouts that I had sent in advance. Okay, Christine, I'm going to unmute you. Yes, Christine, you have a question?
No, sorry, I hit it by accident.
That's okay. So looking at the handouts, you can either, raise your hand or if you have any questions, you can do it via the question section.
Okay, Eric, why don't you show the video?
Sure. Okay, I'm going to grab the screen back. You see this Tokyo skyline? Can you see it?
I can.
Okay, great.
I had a real rough time in school with ADD, and I have a PhD. I earned a PhD, but tough to pay attention. Biology, geology, physics, chemistry, really tough for me. Only one thing grabbed my attention, and it's that planet called Earth. But in this picture right here, you see that Earth is mostly water. That's the Pacific. 70% of Earth is covered with water. And you could say, hey, I know planet Earth. I live here. You don't know Earth. You don't know this planet because most of it's covered with that. Average depth, 2 miles. And when you go outside and look up at the Empire State Building, Chrysler Building, the average depth of the ocean is 15 of those on top of one another. We've explored about 5% of what's in that water. Explored, meaning for the first time, go peek and see what's there. So what I want to do today is I want to show you some things about this planet, about the oceans. I want to take you from some shallow water down to the deep water, and hopefully, like me, you'll see some things that get you hooked on exploring planet Earth. Things like corals. You've seen plenty of corals. Those of you that have been to the beach, snorkel, corals are an amazing place to go. Full of life. Some big animals, small animals, some nice, some dangerous, sharks, whales, all that stuff. They need to be protected from humanity. Great places, but what you probably don't know about is in the deep ocean, the very deep part of the ocean. We have volcanic eruptions. Most volcanoes on Earth at the bottom of the sea, more than 80%. And we actually have fire deep inside the ocean going on right now, all over the world, in the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian Ocean. In this place, the ocean floor, the rocks actually turn to liquid. So you actually have waves in the ocean floor. You'd say nothing could live there, but when we look in detail, even there, even in the deepest, darkest places on Earth, we find life, which tells us that life really wants to happen. So pretty amazing stuff. Every time we go to the bottom of the sea, we explore with our submarines, with our robots. We see something that's usually surprising. Sometimes it's startling, and sometimes revolutionary. You see that puddle of water sitting there. And all around the water, there's a little cliff, there's a little white sandy beach. We get closer to it, you see the beach a little bit better, some of the waves in that water down there. The thing that's special about this water is that it's at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. So you're sitting inside a submarine, looking out the window at a little pond of water beneath the sea. And we see ponds, we see lakes, we see rivers. In fact, right here is a river at the bottom of the ocean going from the lower left to the upper right. Water's actually flowing through there. Okay, this totally blew our minds that how can you have this you're in the ocean looking at more water, and there's animals that only live in that water. So, the bottom of the ocean, I love this map because it shows in the middle of the ocean there's a mountain range. That mountain range is the greatest mountain range on Earth. It's called the Mid-Ocean Range, 50,000 miles long, and we've hardly had a peek at it. We find valleys, many thousands of valleys, larger, wider, deeper than the Grand Canyon. We find, as I said, underwater lakes, rivers, waterfalls. The largest waterfall on the planet is actually under the ocean, up near Iceland. All that stuff in that 5% that we've explored. So, the deal about the ocean is that to explore it, you've got to have technology. Not only technology, but it's not just Dave Gallo or one person exploring. It's a team of people. You've got to have the talent. You've got to have the team. You've got to have the technology. And in this case, it's our ship Atlantis and the submarine Elvin. Now, inside that submarine, this is an Elvin launch. So there's 3 people. They're being wheeled out onto deck. There's 47 other people, the teamwork, on that ship, making sure that these people are okay. Everybody in that submarine is thinking one thing right now. Should I have gone to the bathroom one more time? Because it's like you're in there for 10 hours. 10 hours in that little sphere, 3 of you together, and nobody is going to be around you. You go into the water, and once you hit the water, it's amazing. There's a lovely color blue that penetrates right inside you. You don't hear the surface ship anymore. You hear that pinging of a sonar. If you've got an iPhone, you've got sonar on there. It's that same pinging that goes down to the bottom and comes back up. Divers check out the sub to make sure the outside's okay, and then they say go, and down you go to the bottom of the ocean, and it's an amazing trip. So for 2.5 hours, you sink down to the bottom, and 2 hours of it's totally pitch black. And now we thought nothing could live inside that world at the bottom of the ocean, and when we look, we find some amazing things. All the way down, we call it the midwater, from the top of the ocean down to the bottom, we find life. Whenever we stop and look, we find life. I'm going to show you some jellies here because they are absolutely some of the coolest creatures on Earth. Every different, look at that thing, just flailing his arms around it. That's like a little lobster. That one's like all these animals with their mouths going hooked together. They're colonial animals. Some animals are tiny. Some can be longer than the stage. Just amazing animals, and you can't collect them with a net. We have to go actually there with our cameras and take a look at them. So every time we go, new species of life, the ocean's full of life. And at the deepest part of the ocean, when we go to that mountain range, we find hot springs. Now, we were sure, because this is poisonous water, because it's so deep it would crush the Titanic the same way you could crush an empty cup inside your hand. We were sure there'd be no life there at all. Instead, we find more life and diversity and density than the tropical rainforest. So in one instance, in one peek out the window of the sub, we discover something that revolutionizes the way we think about life on Earth, and that is you don't always have to have sunlight to get life going. There's big animals down there too, some that look familiar. That guy's called Dumbo. I love him. Dumbo's great. This guy, oh, and I wish I had more footage of this. We're trying to get an expedition together to go look at this, and maybe in a year we'll have that. And go online and look. Vampirotuthis infernalis, the vampire squid, incredibly cool. In the darkness of the deep sea, he's got glowing tentacles. So if I'm coming at you like him, I put my arms out in the darkness so that all you see are these little glowing things over here and I'm coming at you. When he wants to escape, he's got these glowing pods on his butt that look like eyes. He's got glowing eyes on his butt, man. How cool is that? It's just an amazing animal. Vampire squid, because when it gets protective, it pulls this black cape over his whole body, curls up into a ball. Outrageous animal. And then, you know, this ship, the Ship of Dreams. 100 years ago, this coming April, this ship was supposed to show up in New York. It's Titanic. And Cole led an expedition out there last year. We are learning so much about that ship. You know, Titanic's an interesting place from biology because animals are moving in to live on Titanic. Microbes are actually eating the hull of Titanic. That's where Jack was king of the world, right there on the bow of Titanic. So we're doing real good. And what's exciting me is that someday we're making a virtual Titanic, so you can sit there at home with your joystick and your headset on and you can actually explore Titanic for yourself. That's what we want to do, virtual world. So it's not Dave Gallo or someone else exploring the world. It's you. You explore it for yourself. So here's the bottom line. You know, the oceans are unexplored, and I can't begin to tell you how important that is because they're important to us. 7 billion people live on this planet. And all of us are impacted by the sea because the oceans, they control the air you breathe, the water you drink, the food you eat. All those are controlled in some way by the ocean. And this is a thing that we haven't even explored 5%. The thing I want you to leave you with is that in that 5%, I showed you some cool stuff. There's a lot more cool stuff. Every dive that we go out in the ocean, we find something more new, something new about the sea. So what's that other 95%? Did we get the exciting stuff or is there more out there? And I'm here to tell you that the ocean's full of surprises. There's a quote I love by Marcel Proust. The true voyage of exploration is not so much in seeking new landscapes, which we do, but in having new eyes. And so I'm hoping today, by showing you some of this, is giving you some new eyes about this planet. And for the first time, I want you to think about it differently. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, Eric?
Yep, I'm going to give you back the screen.
Okay.
Okay, you got it?
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video. I must say, before I watched it, I thought, well, I do really know a lot about the ocean, but I realized that there are several things that I didn't know, and perhaps you had the same experience. And I'm sure that if you show that video with your students, they're going to find out things that they had no idea about. So let's evaluate the video. And here are some criteria. These are certainly not the only criteria, but there's some that we could certainly use today. One is, what's the level of the video? And Eric, I don't know. We do have a poll. Okay. So you have three choices, and you can choose any or all: adult basic ed, adult secondary ed, or transition to higher ed. And if you're an ESL teacher, ESOL teacher, pick the level, basic or secondary. Because what we're trying to get here is the level of difficulty.
Okay, we're about 60% voting complete. Closing in on 100. Almost there. Couple people left. All right, so I think going once, going twice. I'm going to close the poll and share the results. So you should be able to see the results here. Can you see the results, David?
No, I can't. Can you tell me what they are?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm not sure why you guys can't see it. The ABE, 38%, adult secondary, 62%, and transition to higher education, 46%.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So let's look at the next criterion. In this case, I'd like you to rate it 0 to 3. 0 is unusable, 1 would be okay, 2 would be good or very good if you like, and 3 would be excellent. And so the next question has to do with suitability for ABE learners or adult learners in a basic skills level. That could be basic skills or secondary level.
You know why you can't see it? Because you have control of the screen.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense. All right, we're just about at 100%. Going once, going twice. Closed. So 0% thought it was unusable. 43% thought okay, 36% good, and 21% excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Good, okay, good, and excellent, kind of in those rankings.
Okay, great. So now let's look at accuracy and quality of the content. Again, use the same rating scale.
We're getting much higher turnout than the midterms, so that's good. All right, getting close to time. All right, going once, going twice. Closed. All right, so the results are okay, 14%, good, 71%, and excellent, 14%. So really, 71% good.
Okay, great. Let's go on to the next one. This is the potential for learner engagement. Is this engaging to your learners, do you think? Again, same scale, 0 to 3.
Okay, we're getting close. Going once, going twice. Okay, closed. So in terms of learner engagement, unusable, 8%, okay, 38%, good, 38%, and excellent, 15%. So a couple people thought not so good for learner engagement, and then the vast majority of people thinking it was either okay or good.
Okay. And then the last one is the quality of explanation. Same scale, 0 to 3.
All right, I think pretty much everybody's done quickly on this one. And unusable 0%, okay 38%, good 46%, and excellent 15%. So highest is good at 46 and then okay at 38. So people are
Okay.
satisfied with it.
So that's it for the poll. However, I'm very interested, and others probably will be too, to hear your comments on the video. Things that you wanted to say about the criteria that we developed or about the video itself. Now is your chance in the chat box.
Okay. Janice has already weighed in and said that she thought it was a great video, but that it was way above most ESOL students.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask Janice, would you see a way to use this video or parts of this video for English language learning? And if so, raise your hand or put it in the chat box, whichever you prefer.
Right, and other folks too of that question about how you would use this or adapt this for English language learning itself.
One of the things that several of the science teachers that I presented this to have said, and remember these are not English language teachers, they're science teachers, but they have said that in this video and in some other videos, the presenter talks very fast, much faster than their students would be able to take in, even native speakers. So the answer to that is this is video, and it can be used in a variety of ways. You could show it in your classroom, and you could stop it. You could just show a small segment and stop it and say, okay, what was he saying there? What did people think he was saying? The other thing is that if students are watching it on their own in your lab or at home or at a library or from a smartphone for that matter, or a tablet, they can start it and stop it, and they can rewind it, and they can watch the same segment many times. I found, for example, that this is a pretty densely packed piece of video with a lot of visual information as well as a lot of verbal information. And I've watched it several times now and still find that I had missed something in an earlier version. So watching a video several times is often a good thing to do.
So, David, some people have weighed in. So Kathy said that she's not a science person, but she found the speaker engaging. How other people are weighing in saying it's probably not for their ESL students because their formal education is low, and so the gap between maybe their background knowledge and what you would need there. One of the questions Janice had is, are subtitles available for TED Talks? And I think, I'm not sure if subtitles are available, but David, as you're suggesting that if students are going to watch it several times, you could provide a transcript for certain parts of it.
Actually, TED, and I believe TED Ed, which is where this is from, but I'm not positive of this, but TED has transcripts. And so that would be fabulous to just download the transcript. If you go to TED-Ed, TEDed.org, I believe, but TED-Ed anyway, you can check and see if there are transcripts for this.
Thomas agrees that the speaker does speak too fast. I think Munira pointed out that it's not focused on the main things that they need to learn, and that they have such a short time to spend on science, so they need much more targeted learning. I think from a different perspective, Christine kind of points out that it's going to spark interest in science for ABE learners. So I think rather than maybe thinking about it as delivering particular content, maybe it's more about a disposition towards science and a disposition towards the world.
Well, this actually raises a very important point, and I'll mention it certainly later, but you'll want to preview a video before using it with your students. And if you're interested in videos that are specifically focused on content, let's say for the GED or for another high school equivalency test that you may use, you'll certainly want to preview them to make sure that they address that content. If you're interested in using videos to engage learners, to get them to see science as something that is interesting and that is beyond performance on a test, you'll be looking for other things.
Right. Thomas points out that he gets good videos that are relevant to what they're studying on YouTube. So, and I know, David, you have done a lot of looking on YouTube and found a good number of videos that you think deal with content pretty directly.
Yeah, exactly. And there are two things. One is that the video list that we put together, most of the videos, not all of them, but most of them are actually on YouTube, and we found them on YouTube. In other words, the science teachers looked for particular kinds of videos in particular topic areas, previewed them, and then said, this is a good one to add to the list. So the list may save some of you time. On the other hand, there is this phenomenon that YouTube continues to grow, perhaps geometrically, which means that there will be videos a year from now, that many more videos that are probably of a higher quality than many of the videos that are on this list now. So I'm not saying don't go to YouTube, not by any means, but I am saying that the list might save you some time.
I think the other point that this raises is that when you're thinking about using videos, you're still teaching with them, right? You're not expecting them to do the teaching, right? And so we can think of we all had experiences in K-12, maybe even in college, where the professor or the teacher turned the lights off and turned the video on, and we just watched it with no questions beforehand, no stopping and interaction during and afterwards. And those were terrible experiences. Most of us fell asleep when the lights turned off and it started to show. So, they're part of your teaching resources. They're not doing the teaching for you, right? So it takes some legwork to use these.
That's right. I'm going to be actually talking a little bit about that. There's been some interesting science research on using videos, and so I want you to be aware of that. So, Eric, do I have...
you do have the screen.
Am I the presenter?
Yep.
Okay. So there's some other videos. Some of you, particularly the folks from the New Jersey and perhaps even New York area, may be very familiar with TV 411. Those who may not be aware of it, not only for science but for a variety of areas, you might be interested in taking a look. So it's tv411.org. I am particularly interested in their latest series of videos called What's Cooking. All of their videos are top-notch, professional, designed for adult basic education students. They are designed as a kind of video magazine. The science ones I particularly like because they are about science, even though the theme is cooking. So it's an engaging theme for many students. The acting is engaging. The level is adult basic ed, not adult secondary ed, although many people who've looked at them have said that they're appropriate for adult secondary ed. Here's another one called Heat, and it's about heat. And obviously ovens create heat, and so there are opportunities to do that. In the previous one, actually, the salt one, I was fascinated, if you have a chance to look at this, it's one of the best introductions to the periodic table I've ever seen, because it's in the context of what the video is about, which is sodium, salt. Anyway, so this is I like all of these, and by the way, so did the science teachers who evaluated them. The one on photosynthesis, also very worthwhile, and photosynthesis is certainly something that adult secondary ed students need. They need to know about this for the GED test and for other high school equivalency tests. There are other TED Ed lessons. This one is, I think, very intriguing. So you might want to take a look at this. These are videos that were evaluated by the science teacher, so you can read their reviews. You just saw Deep Ocean Mysteries. This one we don't really have time for you to look at together today, but I want to tell you about it. And if there's only one video that you look at, this would be the one. And particularly if you're a science teacher. So why? Why do I say that? Well, this particular video that was made by Derek Mueller, who actually has a whole series of videos that are worth watching, is based on his research. he did research on science education and particularly the use of videos. And one of the things that he discovered is just showing a video may not result in learning. Even when students feel like they're learning and might, on an evaluation for you, say, oh yes, I'm learning and I'm more confident in what I know. But the actual tests reveal that they haven't learned anything. Why? And by the way, why am I showing you this if I'm trying to get you interested in using videos? Well, the answer is that this does not mean you shouldn't use videos. Quite the opposite. It means that there are better ways to use videos than just showing them, and better ways to use them than just saying, okay, here's the content that you need to know, and you're going to learn it from this video. So what this is about is that students already have ideas about scientific phenomena. All your students already have ideas. The problem is that these ideas may not be correct. And for that matter, this doesn't apply just to your students. It applies to teachers. It applies to all of us. We have concepts about science which may or may not be correct. So when you present the video, before you present it or just before you present it, it's important to find out what are the students' conceptions, what are their ideas about the particular topic, and perhaps to write that down on newsprint or on flip charts or on a chalkboard or a whiteboard, whatever you use. Then show the video. Then come back and say, okay, let's look at this. Let's look at your ideas about this before you watch the video. Is anything different as a result of watching the video? Was there anything in the video that surprised you? So getting the articulation of their ideas at the outset is a very good strategy for teaching, and it may apply in other contexts as well. And Derek Mueller, who did the research and produced this particular video, has a bunch of interesting videos on Veritasium, and so there is the YouTube channel for Veritasium. Again, you're going to get a copy of the slides, so you'll have these. You don't have to write them down now. Let's see if there are any questions or comments on how to present videos. The Derek Mueller idea.
Right. So as you were talking about that, Thomas was weighing in saying, he makes sure that he stops him at certain points and asks questions like, do you remember when we studied this? Or based on what we read, what is the speaker talking about? Right. So as we're saying, like, making sure that you're engaging the students as they're watching the videos.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the point that you made, David, about all of us having misconceptions is something that's important to share with all our learners, right? Which is to say that I'm like you. There's things that I don't know about the world that I need to learn, or there's things that I thought that I knew about the world that I have to, relearn and reconsider because I thought I knew it, but it's not the case. And I think if you send that message that you don't have every answer and that, the teachers don't have every answer and that we still should ask questions, you can model yourself as a lifelong learner when it comes to something like science, never mind anything else. I think it's a really important thing.
Sure. So I'd like to give you a few tips. Some are pretty obvious, you already know, but I feel that I should mention it anyway. One is to preview a video before assigning it or showing it in your class. That raises a very interesting problem for teachers, and that is it takes time to preview videos. And if you want to show, let's say, 20 videos during the course of a year or a semester, that's a lot of work to preview 20 videos. Is there a way that you could do that and save some time? Well, there may be. Just as, for example, in this project, we pulled together science teachers from around the country, adult ed science teachers, and they previewed videos, and we produced a list of those reviews, and that was beneficial to all of those teachers as well as to you. You might be able to do that at your program if you are not the only science teacher there, or at the programs in your area, or, for example, someone might organize a group in New Jersey of all of the science teachers in New Jersey who are interested in previewing videos. You could do that using free software like Google Groups or Yahoo Groups, or Wigio. There are any number of ways of doing that online, so you don't have to actually do it even in real time. Somebody might be interested in doing that. If you do, please let me know. I'd be interested to know that that's happening. So there are different ways to watch videos. I mentioned, of course, you can show it in your class. And by the way, if you do show a video in class and you don't have internet access, it's still possible to do that. You can download, for example, YouTube videos. You can get free software. One example is called 4K Download. That's what I use. There are many others. You can download it to your hard drive. You can download it to your laptop, to whatever you want to bring into the classroom and connect to a multimedia projector and then show it to your students. So you don't need an internet connection in class to do that. You could also assign it as supplemental instruction to be watched after class. Or you could assign it to be watched before class using a flipped classroom style or flipped learning style. Now, some of you may not be familiar with flipped learning, so very quickly what it is the idea is instead of you, the teacher, presenting information in class, the video is shown before class, or it could be not necessarily video, it could be another kind of presentation. It could be, for example, screen captures, or anything else that you choose, an audio file perhaps. But the idea is what you would normally present, you assign for homework before class. And then in an ideal system, you also find out whether people watch it, and you find out how they did on the quiz, and then you know before you walk into the classroom who got it and is ready to move on, who needs help, and you can actually provide the people who need the most help with that help. Or if you have volunteers in your classroom, they can also assist you with that. Or you could pair up the people who didn't get it with those who did, and there could be peer learning taking place. Those of you who are familiar with Khan Academy, they, as you probably know, have science videos, and they also have a complete management information system, so you could assign Khan Video Science, or Khan Academy science videos that you could then very quickly, in 3 minutes before class starts, you can find out who watched, who did the quiz and gets it, and who doesn't.
David, one of the
Yes.
hurdles here Thomas points out is that depending upon the program that you're at, downloading is not so easy, that sometimes you need IT to do it, or you need an administrative password. That programs may limit teachers from downloading things because they don't want them to pick up viruses or other sorts of materials. So certainly it's something you need to do well in advance, right? You can't be thinking about doing it 20 minutes before class.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, what I was thinking is actually not necessarily doing it at your program, doing it at home and downloading it to a portable hard drive of some kind, or to your laptop, which you carry into your classroom and connect to a multimedia projector. Then you're not even dealing with the school's internet system. You're only dealing with your laptop or your device, and you can do it from a tablet, incidentally, and the multimedia projector. So there's no danger of viruses.
I think a portable hard drive is really essential. I have one for, video and audio because it can chew up a lot of memory. And that way you don't have to worry about, internet access if you want to show something. And they're getting reasonable in terms of prices too.
Mm-hmm. They are. So in many programs, particularly programs that are in public schools, YouTube is blocked. And so you can download it, as I mentioned. And if you want to take a look at Softonic, it gives you a number of free downloading tools. And I don't know if 4K download is there. If not, that's the one I would suggest you start with. I also have written a couple of articles about adult learning videos. You might take a look at this one. This is certainly not specifically about science, using science, but about using videos of all kinds. So a little bit more on flipped learning. We talked a little bit about that actually already. Let's see. Yeah, I pretty much said it, except one thing that I didn't say that I think is worth thinking about. Some of you may be familiar with Benjamin Bloom's idea of mastery learning, the idea that in a criterion assessment environment instead of a graded curve environment, every learner can master the learning. And it's a brilliant idea, and it's certainly an idea that lots of teachers have paid attention to over the years, but many teachers have found that it's extremely difficult to implement it in a classroom. That in order to do that, you have to have a knowledge of where each student is with regard to the curriculum. So one of the things that some people are finding is that this may be easier to do in a model that uses competency-based education and also includes videos as part of that process. That could be a long conversation. It could be a whole nother webinar, but it's an idea that I thought you might want to think about. And a flipped learning model actually might be the way to go and to do that. Just a little historical point, which is flipped learning, as far as I know, grew out of Khan Academy. But, of course, people who are flipping their classes are not limited to Khan Academy. And I did mention earlier that I moderate a group on the Flipped Learning Network. So if you're interested in joining that adult education group, just email me. There's my address, and I'll send you an invitation. One of the things that I think is worth thinking about here is if you're interested in flipped learning, how to do that, how to actually flip your classroom, because teachers rightly point out it's a lot of work to organize all those videos and to have every class delivered first in a video before the class begins. What many teachers, including adult ed teachers, have discovered is you don't have to flip your whole class for the year. You could, for example, say, okay, on Friday or on Thursday, we're going to do a flipped lesson every week. So watch the video at home on Wednesday or before that, but be sure you watch it by Thursday. It's also possible to do it once a month or just 2 or 3 times in the course of a semester or however long a term, whatever that is. Experiment with it. See if your students like it. I was presenting to a group of science teachers the other day, and an ABE teacher said, I teach ABE and I teach adult secondary ed. I've tried flipped learning. It works great in my adult secondary ed classroom and doesn't work well in my ABE classroom. So you want to try it. You want to experiment with it before you set about flipping your whole class for the whole term. So just a couple of other things, and then we'll have a few minutes for other comments and questions that you might have. One is I did mention earlier that we use the LINCS system. It's free. It's actually sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education. And there is a LINCS community of practice on science. There are many others. So, for example, if your background is in ESL, there's a great community of practice on ESL. You can get to all of these by going to links.ed.gov. And you can sign up there and join the conversation with your colleagues around the country. You could also find some great resources there. I also mentioned earlier the OER Commons, Open Education Resources. This, for some of you, is a new term. It's definitely a buzzword in K through 12 and higher ed, and becoming one in adult ed. These are free resources. They are open source, which means that in most cases you can not only use them, but you can repurpose them. You can take parts of them and you can add to them and make them your own. And OER Commons is a place where teachers have reviewed these resources, not just videos, by the way, but there are videos included. And the great news is that in the science area, there is an adult ed focused science section. And there are videos and other resources specifically for science. So that's all I have to present today, and I welcome your questions, your comments, whatever you have to say.
Okay. Thomas kind of followed up on this idea of competency-based education and saying that the difficulties now are that the standardized tests kind of work against some of this competency-based learning in terms of what types of evidence it requires versus the type of evidence learners might have of their own skills developing around competencies that they have in mind.
That may be, but it's really ironic because where competency-based education has really caught hold and is expanding, and you will see this if you haven't already, is in higher education. And not just in the vocational side of higher education, interestingly enough. Colleges and universities are very concerned about the number of students who do not actually complete and get a degree or a certificate. And there are a number of colleges and universities that believe, and there is some evidence, not a lot, but some, that competency-based education may actually increase retention and completion, leading toward degree programs. So if the standardized tests that you're using you think are not aligned with that, and higher ed is, we have a problem.
Right. Well, I mean, I think even in my own experience at Montclair State, at the master's level, we have a comprehensive exam at the end of the program, and there are students who have done perfectly fine in individual classes, you know, kind of going along with particular assignments, but when it comes to the comprehensive exam at the end, have a difficult time pulling all of these things together. And, you know, and I don't think the exam itself is particularly difficult. It asks some kind of basic ideas about literacy and development. And it means that we as a program have to do a better job at each step of the way, kind of having lighthouses where students can stop and say, all right, this is what I'm hearing right now. And these are the questions that I have. And so it's not just kind of isolated classes that don't add up to a whole. Okay, other thoughts and questions about either using video for science, how we get ourselves prepared to teach science if we're not science people ourselves, but we know we need to support our learners, or the idea of the flipped classroom, or questions or suggestions for things that NJOL could do in New Jersey around either using video science or the flipped classroom. The flipped classroom is this idea that you will watch a video or get materials in advance of the class and come in and kind of do labs or do work on it rather than the teacher spending time in the class providing instruction around it. In some ways, it's kind of a buzzword that people are talking about now with video. In some ways, it's not entirely new, right? Because students have always been expected to do homework and come to class to be prepared. And it's just whether teachers were utilizing the time in the classroom to kind of put that knowledge into practice or to do more lecturing. Manir, there's a question about comprehensive list of resources. Yeah, in David's PowerPoint, and also one of the things that was sent out in advance, it has a list of the science videos.
Thomas, what is new with flipped learning is that if it's working right, it frees the teacher to actually work one-on-one and in small groups with the students who need help most in the classroom, so that the classroom doesn't look the same anymore. It's not a teacher presenting in front of the classroom. It's a teacher sitting with students, helping them to better understand what they didn't understand from watching the video, and only with the students who really need help. Those who got it are moving on.
Right, and so they should be involved in, project-based instruction and working on things that they're interested in by themselves, and then getting support as necessary.
So we're near the end here. I have one more comment, which is if you do use some of the videos from the video list or from the reviews of the videos with your students, and you would like to talk about that, on the links community of practice, the science community of practice, your comments are very welcome. And we're beginning to get some comments from teachers who are doing that. So you might want to just log into links to get those comments, but I hope you will also contribute to those. I looked at this video, I showed it, I previewed it, it seemed to be appropriate, I showed it to my students and it bombed. This is why. Or I showed it to my students and they absolutely loved it. It was the best thing they ever did. This is why. Or here are the good parts, here are the parts that are not so good. Whatever your experience was, you can post it to the Link Science community of practice.
Okay. And certainly this is something that, within your programs with colleagues, share ideas for how you would use particular videos. So as David said, it's close to the top of the hour. We'll be sending out a PDF of the PowerPoint, and you can, if you for some reason you did not get this handouts in the email, send me an email and let me know. And probably within a week or so, this should be archived up on the YouTube channel for NJOL. And I like to encourage you to follow up on this. Maybe we're thinking about a workshop that you could do at the NJOL conference, or if you are interested in hosting a webinar, I can help you going through the logistics and setting it up and kind of thinking about how you might handle it. So we're always interested in ideas for new webinars. So any last minute questions or thoughts? Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to thank David again for sharing his insight and expertise into this, I think, really, really interesting topic. And I look forward to seeing what you all make of this moving forward. And maybe we'll hang out.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be with everybody.
Maybe